What if I were to tell you that in New England, there is a forest so evil, so cursed, so dangerous, that to this very day it is illegal to even enter this area? Join us as Weirder After Dark tells the story of the Dark Entry Forest and its cursed and now abandoned village of Dudleytown. We will do our best to separate out fact from fiction, lore from truth, as we take you on a crazy ride to the history of one of the darkest places in New England.
Welcome back to Weirder After Dark, the podcast we get into all things New England weird. My name is Sean. I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Kathy.
So Sean, Kathy, have you ever heard of the curse of the Dark Entry Forest?
No.
Yeah, I've not.
New one to you guys?
Yeah, never even heard of it.
This one is freaky. I like to go through the curse with you guys. Then I want to go a little bit deeper into the research and maybe debunk some of the things and really leave it up to you guys as to where we land.
Okay.
Ooh, all right. So forest, huh? Okay,
Yeah.
let's do it.
So the Dark Entry Forest is an area in northwestern Connecticut, close to the New York border, about a 2-hour train ride from New York City. It is said to be so cursed that even to this day, it is illegal to step foot on the property.
Wait, really?
Yes.
So it's like completely closed off by the state?
Completely closed off to the public.
Oh, man. Is it like, if it's fenced or anything like that? Or
I don't know if it's fenced. I do know that they will arrest you for trespassing.
okay.
Yeah, because I was
good enough.
wondering, how are you going to keep me off of walking through the woods?
Can't
Yeah.
keep Kathy off anything.
So it's so cursed that the Warrens, the paranormal research team that Sean talked about in the Conjuring House episode, they were actually asked to come out and investigate this forest. The Warrens came out and did their investigation and reported. They didn't find anything unusual.
Okay.
Oh.
No, just kidding. They said that shit was haunted as fuck, filled with demon entities and evil spirits. Yeah, they were
Oh,
scared to
shit.
death of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right up their alley.
Yep. So its ominous name, the Dark Entry Forest. This is probably due to its heavy canopy of trees and it being positioned between 3 hills that don't allow for full sunlight for most of the day, causing the area to appear darker than the surrounding forest. It's described as having a whimsical, almost fairy tale-like quality. Picture fields of wildflowers, mixed in with heavy, dense canopy of treetops, with small rays of sunlight coming down through the leaves, and the light catching the naturally forming mica scattered on the forest floors and the riverbeds, almost making the grounds and streams sparkle. It's also said to have an unnatural silence, and birds stop chirping once you enter this forest.
You had me in the first half. I was like, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And now I'm creeped out.
The road into the Dark Entry Forest is cleverly named the Dark Entry Forest Road.
Deep.
Yep. It goes from a back road to more of a logging trail as you climb, and eventually you need to abandon the car altogether to navigate this road on foot due to such disrepair today. The Dark Entry Forest also holds the ruins of a deserted logging town called Dudleytown. Today we would call this a ghost town. Dudleytown was founded by William Dudley in 1747. William had an interesting heritage, to say the least. It is believed he carries a family curse with him to Dudleytown. This curse itself began in the 1500s with William's ancestor, Edmund Dudley, back in England. The curse started after a failed plot to overthrow the King of England when Edmund Dudley was arrested by King Henry XIII on charges of treason. On April 24th, 1509, 3 days after the death of King Henry XII, the new king, his son, King Henry XIII, arrested and prosecuted anybody he saw as a threat to his position and power. This included Edmund Dudley. Edmund's son, John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland, was later also charged with treason and accused of plotting with Edmund to install his daughter-in-law, Lady Jane Grey, as Queen of England. The plot failed, and Edmund, John, and Lady Jane were all beheaded for their crimes.
Damn.
A curse was said to befall this family in the family name from that time forward.
Beheading is such like a crazy death penalty.
It's a statement, right?
Yeah. God damn. I'm glad we've evolved from that. Because imagine there's a beheading in the center of town. Are you going?
No.
I'm not
That's
going.
fucked up.
Kathy?
Yeah,
She's the type to say yes.
I'm going.
What the fuck? You're really would you go? You check that out?
I'm going to go.
Oh, fuck no.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
So yeah, picture that. You're in London, England, and what are you guys doing? I don't know. At noon there's a beheading. You want to go downtown? Yeah, let's go check it out.
Let's grab a beer. Yeah. It's a Tinder date.
In the late 1700s, over 200 years later, William Dudley, one of Edmund's descendants, who was the victim of this family curse and whose name was connected to this huge scandal in England, was like, fuck this place. In my head. Everybody thinks I'm cursed and a traitor to the crown. I am moving to America where people be less crazy. Now, I'm not sure that's exactly historically accurate, but that's how I imagine it in my head. So William Dudley moved to the American colony of Connecticut in 1747, and he bought the rights to the dark entry forest and started the town he named after himself called Dudleytown. So I guess back then he bought some land and he just got to call it a town. Honestly, I don't know how that works. I think there's laws against that shit today, but could you just go and buy 10 acres and say, hey, this is Seantown?
I mean, I'll fucking call it whatever I want.
Well, what year was this?
1747.
Didn't they do that though? Like, wasn't there like a time when like people used to just like take their horse and buggy and go out to the middle of the United States and just be like,
I mean,
this is mine, and they like stuck a stick.
Kathy's like, I want to go back to the days where I just get to walk in the woods with some rocks and be like, I declare you mine.
This is my town.
I wouldn't be able to. I'm a woman. I wouldn't.
Oh, that's true. Shortly after founding this new town, William's brother, Gideon Dudley, followed him to Dudleytown. Then later that year, Abel and Brasilia Dudley, Gideon's two sons, arrived. Even later, cousin Martin Dudley showed up to live in Dudleytown. So part of the Dudley family was like, we're sick of the stigma of something that probably didn't happen with our great-great-great-whatever grandfather fucking shit up for us, so we're going to move to the United States and escape this curse.
It makes sense. It's called Dudleytown now. It's full of Dudleys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the founder. He's like, this is my town. I'm naming it after myself.
I'd do that.
So the town of Dudley grows very slowly. This is mostly due to the poor farming conditions. Rocky soil and the three hills that block full sunlight for a large portion of the day. I don't know, maybe this family really is cursed, or maybe there's really bad farmers.
I mean, they kind of sounds like they just picked a bad plot of land.
Yeah. But despite this, by 1854, 26 families called Dudleytown home. However, this would be the height of this town's success before the Dudley family curse starts to play havoc with these poor families, and this town is abandoned forever.
Ooh, man. Chris is all about curse stories, and I love it. I love a good curse.
Yeah, we're going to get good and cursed. So despite the difficult farming, the town seemed to thrive for a while. Dudleytown had timber, which was burned and used to make wood coal for the Litchfield County iron furnaces in the neighboring town of Cornwall. Unfortunately, the furnaces were moved closer to the railroad for easier transports, and the lumber was no longer needed. So the mill shut down after operating only for a few years. Dudleytown also had 3 water-powered mills. Unfortunately, the mills also closed down, and work started to dry up in this town. So this town is already struggling from the start and already starting to live up to this family curse. Then the curse kicks into high gear and seems to take its toll on the remaining families that called Dudleytown home. And within 100 years, this town will be completely deserted by all of them. The first victim of the Dudleytown curse was Nathaniel Carter. He lived in Dudleytown between 1759 and 1764. He took a short business trip to New York City, leaving his family at home. While away, his wife and infant child were brutally murdered.
Aww.
The townspeople claimed that this was by Native Americans, but nobody left alive today knows for sure. Shortly after this tragic event, Nathaniel decided to call it quits on country living and moved back to New York City, where he was from, with the remaining of his family. The day after he arrived back in New York City, he was also murdered.
What?
So the curse starts to take its revenge. Really strange tragedy there.
Yeah, that is really strange. What are the odds? Did it mention how he died?
It did not know.
Damn.
So Abel Dudley, one of the original founders of the town, he was said to go insane while living in Dudleytown.
Really?
Yeah, neighbors report he became more and more recluse, stopped caring for himself. He would sit and stare into the dark woods for hours on end.
Oh, that's so creepy.
Mm-hmm.
The self-neglect got so bad, family and friends had to send him to a nearby town to a nursing home.
Aww.
He died 7 years later, being said to never have regained his composure or his sanity.
Damn. So legitimately insane.
Yeah, and remember, there's only 26 families in this town.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about 2 very strange incidents.
Slowly getting picked off.
Yeah. Then there was Abel's friend, William Tanner, who also lived in Dudleytown. William had a friend, Gershwin, building him a barn on his property. Gershwin fell off the roof to his death in 1792. Tanner soon went insane as well.
Another one.
Wait, really?
Yep. He claimed that strange creatures lurked in the woods, and he claimed that they killed his friend Gershwin,
Oh.
pushed him off the roof.
What the fuck?
Yeah. At this point, William, talking about strange creatures and demons and ghosts coming out of the woods, his inability to care for himself anymore, he as well was sent to a nursing home. So already, really high number of tragedies in this very small town.
And very similar.
Yeah. And 26 families and 2 people already going insane.
2 people went insane and 1 family completely murdered.
Yeah, that seems like way too high of a coincidence.
Yeah.
It gets worse.
Okay.
So talk of ghosts and demons became common amongst many of the residents, and rumors and warnings of the curse started to dominate the townspeople's discussions. Another resident of Dudleytown was Sarah Fay. Now, Sarah Fay was waiting for her husband to come back from the Revolutionary War, and one day in 1504, while standing in front of her home, she was struck by lightning and died on the spot.
Damn.
Wow.
Her husband, Revolutionary War hero General Herman Swift, after hearing of this news of his wife's death, he too was said to go insane and committed suicide.
Wow.
2 more victims to the curse.
So that's 3 people that went insane.
3 people who went insane, and 1 murdered and 1 hit by lightning so far. Now, one of the most well-known incidents is that of Mary Cheney. She was the wife of the then presidential nominee Horace Greeley. She committed suicide a week before the elections in 1872. Greeley, who was projected to win the election, went on to lose the bid for presidency to Ulysses S. Grant.
Do we know why she committed suicide? I mean, other than the curse.
We don't know why she committed suicide.
Or why he didn't get the presidency.
Yeah, or why
sure.
he didn't win.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, another 2 victims to the deadly curse. As the town entered the 20th century, the curse did as well. One of the more unusual cases is that of John Patrick Bumpley.
I love that name.
Yeah.
Bumpley.
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 Who at this point was one of the very few residents left in Dudleytown. John's wife had consumption, which today we would call tuberculosis. With few neighbors and friends, he was alone with his 2 young children as his wife succumbed to this horrible disease. The day after his wife's funeral, his 2 young children wandered off into the woods, never to be seen again.
Oh, no.
A month after that, he too would wander off into the woods, never to be seen again.
What the fuck is going on, Chris?
A few months later,
Oh, God.
their house burnt down in a mysterious fire. So yeah, very strange stuff going on in this very small town.
What the fuck?
So excuse the analogy here, but this was the final nail in the coffin for Dudleytown. Misfortune, tragedy, madness, and death seemed to drive all the residents out of this town, never to return again. And Dudleytown became a memory and a few crumbling foundations. While Dudleytown was done, the curse was not.
There's no one else there.
Well, a few years later, after Dudleytown had been abandoned, Dr. William Clark, a leading expert in cancer in New York City, was looking for a place to build a vacation home, away from the busy pace of the city life.
Oh my God, he clearly didn't do his homework.
Oh, yeah, he did his homework. So he and his wife found this enchanting forest in Connecticut, and upon visiting it, decided this was the perfect place to build a summer home.
Dun, 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 dun.
They purchased 1,000 acres in the dark entry forest property in 1900. Dr. Clark tried to hire several carpenters to build a vacation home, but all the locals knew about the curse and refused to take the job despite Dr. Clark repeatedly offering above average pay for the job.
People around there are that terrified they're not even willing to take above average pay to do something.
You got this doctor from New York City, and he'll pay New York City money, and they're like, nah, we good.
Real talk though, like, has there ever been anything like that either of you have ever been like, you believed in superstition like that or a curse?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Any like superstition in your life at all?
No, I mean, nothing that I can think of, so
Yeah.
I'd probably have to say no.
Nothing off the top of my head
Yeah,
really
me
reading
neither.
through, but
Yeah.
Me neither. I was just trying to think like, what the fuck? Is there anything I'd be that scared of? Like, nope, not going there. I said I was never going to do a fucking Ouija board and fucking she's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Ouija board!
Ouija board,
let's do it.
The next thing I know, I'm fucking playing on the Ouija board. So
yeah, I didn't want to touch that thing.
Yeah.
Dr. Clark, a man of science, not believing in curses, and being no stranger to hard work, having grown up on a farm, decides to take a summer off and build a house himself. He cleared some land in a flat field about 1 mile up Dark Entry Road. He used the trees he cut down to build a vacation cabin. He then piped water from the natural spring up the hill above his house directly into the cabin so they could have running water. He even built a natural-looking swimming pool in front of the house close to a stream that ran through his property.
Hell yeah, this is a handy-ass man.
Okay, yeah. Can I just say, me and Dr. Clark, we built different.
For real.
He's a doctor of ecology, and he can also go out into the woods with an axe and build a luxury condos. So
Yeah, I feel less of a man.
I'm feeling a little inadequate right now. This house became the perfect vacation getaway property for himself and his wife. And every chance to get away from the busy lifestyle of New York City, they would take the train to their summer house to the Dark Entry Forest. In the summer of 1918, they were there on holiday at their summer house when Dr. Clark had to take a quick overnight trip back to the city for business. His wife stayed alone that night in the house. The next day, Dr. Clark caught the first train back to Connecticut, then made the 2-mile hike from the train station back up Dark Entry Road. Upon returning home, he found his wife in full panic, inconsolable, and stricken with paranoia. She was claiming that there were strange creatures in the woods torturing her all night long.
What?
She demanded they leave for the city at once. Dr. Clark, seeing his wife's despair, complied, and they left for the city later that afternoon.
What a good man.
Soon after returning to the city, a few days later, she committed suicide.
Oh, no.
What the fuck? No
Yeah.
way. Oh, I just got the goosebumps. So that's now like, what, 3 suicides? That's 3?
3
4.
suicides. Yeah. You have the 28 families and then the Clarks, and 7 really tragic stories. So over 1/4 anyway.
So what is their connection here? So they're seeing creatures in the woods that drive them insane and make them want to like either they lose their mind or kill themselves? Like, this is wild. This is fucking crazy.
I've never heard this story before. And I'm reading this. I'm like, holy shit. Like, this is, no wonder it's illegal to go there.
I feel like 1 or 2 things I could, pull the Roger Perrin and just be like, hey, it's rational. There's some explanation here. But this is a fucking pattern now,
Over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Oof.
And it's a very small town. And to have such tragedy in such a small area, I could see why this curse would be blamed.
Yeah.
So Dr. Clark would eventually remarry and eventually retire to his beloved summer home, and he would live there to his death in 1943. In fact, he also founded the Dark Entry Forest Association, which has helped to preserve the surrounding forest and the site to this day.
Time out. Creatures in the wood drive his wife insane and she commits suicide. He's like, let's preserve it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, he loved this area, even though his wife committed suicide.
But why? Why did he do that? Why wouldn't he just like burn it down?
Well, that's an interesting question. I want to get into that a little bit, right?
Okay. I was gonna say, doctor, you crazy.
Okay, so let's unpack this just a little bit more. So yes, this town was abandoned by all 26 families. Everyone left Dudleytown in the span of just a few generations. But remember, the land was very poor for farming. Rocky soil, the lack of direct sunlight, most of the day being in the shadows of the 3 surrounding hills, mica-filled forest floors. What made it enchanting and magical to live in also made it a very poor place to farm.
Yeah, for sure.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So I could see why some families wouldn't stay long. In addition, the wood coal plant nearby that was buying timber from the Dudleytown mills moved, so the timber mill lost its best customer, meaning there were less jobs in Dudleytown. So lumberjacks moved away to other towns where there was work. The water-powered mills also shut down due to being difficult to travel to because of their location halfway up a mountain road. Shipping logistics were just not cost-effective, and it was easy to move them elsewhere. So for me, this is not proof of the curse. Rather, just really poor business planning that drove most of these people out of town.
Yeah. I wouldn't blame a curse on all those people leaving by any way, shape, or form. I agree.
I think it's just a poor location for this town and not really able to sustain population living there. But the fact that over all these years, and especially the people from New York, because I didn't know about the curse, maybe they talked to people who knew about the curse, but the fact that she too is saying that there's creatures in the woods that are torturing her, the same claim that has been heard before.
Ooh, let's get into that. So what about the people who went mad? One thing the legends left out when talking about the curse was the fact that Abel Dudley, the man who was staring into the woods and was said to gone mad, who was sent to a nursing home and never recovered, and then died 7 years later, he was 83 years old when he went mad.
I guess,
Okay.
Come on.
Yeah, so this to me sounds like he was a prime candidate for onset of dementia. And dementia can have symptoms of hallucinations, depression, oftentimes forgetting or neglecting self-care. Also, dementia patients report seeing spirits and ghosts as part of their hallucinations at times.
Okay, but that wouldn't explain the doctor's wife, though.
Oh, we'll get there.
All right.
So in this case, yes, a nursing home for the last 7 years of his life made sense. Sounds like the man was just old, not cursed.
Yeah.
And then remember his friend, William Taylor, who went mad and accused the woodland creatures of killing the man who worked on his barn? He was 76 years old when he started to go insane.
Okay.
So he was also right in the right age group for onset of dementia as well.
Sure, but like still, wouldn't it be odd for multiple people like to be getting dementia like that?
Well, but what's the timeline?
What do you mean?
Like how long? Like what like is it all the same time?
It sounds like it's pretty closely related, right?
Within a couple of years of each other.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess like my point is, how many people do you think in just neighborhoods have dementia? All at the same time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like 26 families, though. That's like...
It's a lot of tragedy.
That'd be a lot of dementia in a small community. I'm sure maybe.
Remember Sarah Fay, who was waiting for her husband to come back from the Revolutionary War?
Yep.
And one day was struck by lightning in front of her home? Horrible, tragic, don't get me wrong, but people get hit by lightning.
It's true.
I know it's rare, but not necessarily proof of a curse.
And I'll throw out there, like, I read a story one time of a guy, I think it was somewhere off the Appalachian Trail, that got hit by lightning 7 times.
Holy shit.
One guy 7 times.
So. All right, that's curse.
Yeah.
He's cursed, for real.
Yeah. Then her husband, General Herman Swift, when he committed suicide, right? Well, the man just lost his wife after fighting in one of the bloodiest, most brutal wars in the modern history of mankind. The Revolutionary War was fought up close and personal. The saying, don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes, comes from that war. We did not understand nor did we treat post-traumatic stress disorder in the early 1800s. He could have been suffering from PTSD from his time at war and then learning that he lost his wife. Sadly, left untreated, sometimes PTSD ends in suicide. So for me, that makes more sense than a family curse. Furthermore, research tells us that Mary Cheney, the wife of the presidential nominee Horace Greeley, who committed suicide a week before the election in 1872, actually lived near Dudleytown, not in Dudleytown. And there's no real evidence she ever stepped foot in Dudleytown. In fact, in my opinion, the wife of a presidential candidate, excuse the pun, wouldn't be found dead in a poor mill town such as Dudleytown. Her world was more aristocrats and high-end accommodations, so tragic, but probably not curse-related.
I could see how they would want to tie that in into the lore.
Oh, yeah.
Dudleytown.
Especially her being like an established upper class lady.
Or even think being running for presidency and losing and looking for reasons and rationales to the why. Like,
right.
Well, I could see that connection.
Yeah.
The legend and lores tell her as if she was a resident of Dudleytown.
Right.
A little bit of research tells you that she lived kind of close to it, not there.
Yeah. This is kind of like the Conjuring house story too, right?
Yeah.
When you do a little bit of research, it's like, they died 6 miles away, not actually in the house.
Yep.
Yeah.
So also left out of the telling of the curse is the fact that Dr. William Clark's wife did have chronic medical problems. While I could not find her actual medical diagnosis, it was said that she was in chronic pain a lot of the time. Now, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but at the time, opium was the most common pain medication prescribed, and opium, if overused, could cause hallucinations. This might explain the strange creatures that she saw in the woods at night she spent alone in the dark entry forest. And chronic pain can cause depression, and in severe cases, suicidal thoughts or actions. I know that one's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, you don't got me on that one 100%. The rest of them I'm with you. This one I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe.
And I mean, I guess maybe if she heard the story, supposedly there's creatures in the woods, and then now she's hallucinating.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I feel like if I heard the story about stuff in the woods and then I was left alone, I remember being at your place alone for those 7 days and like not even hearing about creepy shit happening at your house, but just like you get in your own head, right? Yep. Like things happen, you get in there and it's really easy to that those things just like snowball on top of each other. So
yeah, no, it's interesting because they start to snowball and then you add legend and myth. And when I first read this, I was like, this place is really cursed. But as I'm going back through and doing more research, I'm like, okay, it might be cursed. I'm not sure here.
Okay.
Now for John Patrick Bumpley, the final resident Dudleytown, whose wife died of consumption and then kids wandered off in the woods, never to be seen again. Then he wandered off in the woods, never to be seen again. Then his house burnt down. That guy?
Yeah.
I got nothing. That's just fucking strange and horrible and tragic, and I just can't explain that away.
Bad, right? Sad shit.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Nor can I explain Nathaniel Carter's story, whose wife and child were murdered. Then when he moved back to New York City, the next day he was murdered.
Yeah, that's some weird shit.
Yeah, the best I can say is, in isolation, both John and Nathaniel's stories sound tragic and horrific. It may be really bad luck, but against the larger story of a curse, they're more easily explained away. People want to make sense of senseless violence and horrific tragedies, and it makes people feel better to imagine they are not at the same risk or vulnerability to senseless violence or tragedies when reassuring themselves that they're not part of this curse. So I think curses play a role in making us feel better and explaining away things that we don't want to see as real.
Or having to take responsibility for.
Yes.
Like, it's not my fault that my kids wandered off into the woods. It's this curse.
It's a curse, right?
Yeah, so.
Now, how about the curse itself? Was there actually a plot to overthrow the king by the Dudley family in England in the 1500s? The few historians I read report no. The arrests were just a way of showing the strength by a young new king who some thought was not old enough or experienced enough to rule. The charges and public beheadings acted more as a warning to anybody who would challenge his power, and there was no real evidence of a plot to replace him or overthrow him. In the 1500s, people in England were very superstitious, and rumors of a family curse started to circulate. You see, unlike today in politics, where the truth is always reported and rumors are never used to influence political power, this was sadly not the case in English monarchies in the 1500s. Rumors were used to take out competitions or threats, unlike reliable, factual sources we have on social media today. So,
I can't.
So the Dudley family seemed to be outcast by many who wanted to show their loyalty or favor to the monarchy. This seemed to be a curse, but not a demonic or magical curse, rather a manufactured curse by the monarchs to make sure the Dudley family never regained any power in England again. King Henry XIII seemed to be a bit of a vindictive little prick. And if you look into it, you will see that truth play out throughout the history of his reign as king in England. He continues to be kind of a paranoid dick that kills people who thinks is not loyal to him. So that curse doesn't really play out in my mind. Historically, seems like there was no real plot. It was just a powerful family that he decided had to be made example of.
Yeah.
Now, as for the Dark Entry Forest itself being so cursed, so evil, so dangerous, that it's illegal to step foot on to this day, yes, it is illegal to trespass there, but that is because it is privately owned by the Dark Entry Forest Association. As much as I don't like it, it is well within their rights not to let anybody go and enjoy the forest because of private property laws. So that claim is true, but not for the reason people are claiming.
Yeah. It sounded way scarier at the beginning when you're just like, there's cursed land that it's illegal to go walk on, and you immediately start thinking things, right?
Yeah.
Like,
lastly, as for the claims that birds stop chirping or singing as soon as you walk on the property, this is a creepy detail that I cannot confirm or deny. But in my personal opinion, this sounds like the kind of local lore, that kind of personal detail that gets added to a ghost story as it's retold over and over again for generations.
Yeah.
So I can honestly say that based on my research, this is a great story, but I'm not convinced that it's a real curse. Now, there was 26 families, and a lot of really horrific and tragic things happened to these families. But I don't know if they're directly connected to this Dudleytown curse or not. I would love to be wrong. If anybody out there has any more information or personal stories about it, I would love to hear it. But for me, this sounds just like a story that gets retold over time.
Yeah. There's a town very similar to that in Massachusetts called Dogtown. It supposedly is haunted and cursed, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like there was some bad stuff that happened on it, but other than just people lived there, it didn't go well, and then there's a story that just kind of keeps getting added to. There's really no curse,
I don't know. I'm going to go against the grain this time. I think it's weird. I think that all these
strange,
stories strung together with some semblance of common themes over multiple different decades, to me, really screams that maybe there could be some weird tie here to the land. Now, I don't know truly where I believe in curses, but it sounds like over multiple decades, there were people who went insane with similar descriptions of creatures being in the woods. Now, you call that what you will. You call that Alzheimer's. You call it opioid overdose, whatever it may or may may not be. That's too similar. That's weird. And I still do think that a small town, a community of 26 families, about 150 people, I don't know, 2 people with similar descriptions of losing their mind and ending up the same way. That just seems really common. And yeah, people can get struck by lightning. Hell yeah. But again, add it to the mix. It's straight. I don't know.
I am on the fence. I am not convinced that the curse is real.
Yeah.
But I'm also not saying that it's not. It does seem like a lot of tragedy and madness and really horrific events for a very, very small community over a very short period of time in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. The creatures in the woods freak me the fuck out.
Yeah, that's creepy.
I don't want that. I don't like that.
Good news.
Yeah.
We can't go visit this place. It's fucking illegal. So we're not going anywhere near that forest.
Well, I mean, we could like walk the perimeter of it.
You could.
I'm just saying.
What if you see a creature staring back, Kathy, and you go insane?
What if no birds are chirping?
Well, listen, guys.
What if a man shows up and cuts down trees and builds a house in the woods? In a swimming pool in his front yard? Like, what the fuck, doctor?
That's a pretty badass house.
Yeah, good for him. Wow, Chris, that was a cool story. Yeah, I don't know what to think.
Me neither. That's why I wanted to share it, because it was really interesting and compelling. But then as I really dug into it, I was like, now I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I could go either way with the story.
Well, it's interesting too, I think, how like you can have some like events happen and there's a story attached, and then people just over time keep adding to it. And I mean, we see it in so many different areas.
I keep thinking back to that story of the doctor and leaving for the city and things seemingly being okay, and coming back to his wife being like, we're getting the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like, what could cause that level of panic? You know, like, you're perfectly fine. Everything's great. It's a summer home. You've been there a bunch, to just in like 12 hours or a couple days. I don't know. That's the one that fucks with me.
That one fucked with me. And then the one where the guy just wandered off into the woods after his children. So that one was weird.
Like, that one just doesn't really do anything for me, because I just think probably back in the day, like, as sad as it is, his 2 boys probably wandered off into the woods. He's stricken with grief and, you know, is in a state of depression or desperate search for his 2 boys, and maybe goes into the woods to look for them, gets lost, disorientated, doesn't make his way back out. I could see that, like that kind of...
Then his house burns down a month later.
Maybe it was struck by lightning.
Maybe.
See, that one too doesn't like bug me out so much, just because people back in those days, like, you could move one town over and like paper trails could just be gone, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that was like lore that has gone ahead and the family just moved, you know, like, and it's just like, oh my God, have you seen the Johnsons?
Yeah.
No, it's been weeks. I heard they walked in the woods and I never saw them again. Like, you know, something like that. And like, they're just like fucking 3 towns down the road,
fair.
You know?
Yeah. And then someone else maybe just could have been like wandering through and then found like a deserted house and moved into the house. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then Nathaniel, his wife and kid being murdered, then him moving back to the city, and the next day getting murdered.
That's fucked.
That's probably the freakiest one for me, I think.
Yeah. That's like so unexplainable too. And it wasn't a suicide, it was a murder.
No, yeah, he was murdered the next day.
Dude.
It's like, it could just be horrible tragedy. Could be just really bad luck. And
yeah. Maybe he was into some bad shit in New York, right? Mm-hmm. He was in New York.
Yeah.
Maybe they were taking out his family and taking out him. It was some kind of hit for something.
I was actually kind of thinking that was sort of where my mind went, was that they went to his house looking for him, because I was like, okay, so he's in like this little town. Now he's traveling back to New York. Did he know people?
Did he owe somebody money?
Yeah. Was he doing things he shouldn't have been doing? Because why else would your family be wiped out and then you go back to New York and then you're killed? That was the only connection I could make.
I would say if that story is even true, that doesn't prove to me that it's less cursed. So it still sounds pretty cursed.
It's still a bunch of bad shit happening to people.
Yeah. I obviously have to go not cursed, and I hate like doing that, because like I want to believe, because I do see there's so many trends, but the whole basis of the curse I feel like you kind of slaughtered.
Yeah.
So like I was like, okay, like you could have had me, but there's no meat on the bone from the curse.
Yeah. The historians were pretty clear that they don't think there was an actual plot. It was just a power grab by King Henry the 13th. And
I love me a good story like that, though. That was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed researching. I enjoyed telling you guys that one.
And gang, we hope that you enjoyed this story on the Dark Entry Forest as well. Chris, again, thank you so much for going ahead and sharing that here today. We'll be adding some additional context and images on our Instagram. So if you are not there yet, make sure you find your way on Instagram at Weirder After Dark and check out some images that Chris will be posting to support his story. We also want to let you know that we are always on the lookout for your creepy tales from New England. So if anything weird, unexplained, mysterious, aliens, you name it, has happened to you, we want to know about it. And send that shit to our email, and you can reach us at thegang@weirderafterdark.com. And while you're doing that, don't forget, we are out here building some communities to bring the Weirder After Dark crew together. And you can find us on Reddit as well as on Facebook, again, at Weirder After Dark. So why aren't you there right now chatting to us, chatting to Kathy, chatting to Chris, chatting to each other? Come chat with us. We want to interact with you. And lastly, just remember, as always, it gets a little weirder after dark.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.